They always want you quiet when they're doing something loud. That's the trick. Smile, shake your hand, tell you how much they appreciate your years of dedication, and then gut you right through the ribcage while you're still trying to process the sentence. The email came at 5:32 p.m. Subject line: Quick sync. Just that. No context, no calendar invite, no agenda. But I'd been here long enough to know what it meant. I walked the carpeted hallway to the corner office like I had 1,000 times before. Same overhead buzz. Same smell of burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. But the air felt heavier this time. Like it knew something I didn't. Like it was holding its breath. Gordon Masters stood when I walked in. Wore that ridiculous sports blazer he saved for tough conversations. He extended a hand I didn't shake, gestured to the leather chair across from him. It hissed when I sat down. "First off," he said, "let me just say how grateful we are for everything you've done here." He smiled. All teeth. No sincerity. "You're part of this company's DNA, Marcus. Seriously. But..." I didn't blink. Didn't nod. Just waited. "We're at a turning point," he went on. "The industry's shifting. Culture's evolving. We've got to be more adaptive, more dynamic. Fresh blood, you know. Energy." Then came the line he probably practiced in the mirror. "You've been here almost 3 decades. Maybe it's time to evolve." I stared at the nameplate on his desk. Polished brass, 0 fingerprints. Gordon Masters, CEO. Underneath it, a water bottle with his son's face printed on it. Chase Masters, the new director of digital strategy. I didn't say a word. The door opened behind me without a knock. Chase walked in like he owned the oxygen, wearing joggers, sunglasses indoors, and a sweatshirt that said, "Hustle is my love language." He carried a tripod in one hand and a smoothie in the other. "Yo, Pops," he said. "We doing the 6 p.m. shoot in the break room?" Lighting's hitting different today. Gordon chuckled like this was endearing. "Chase, you remember Marcus, don't you?" Chase looked at me like I was a plant, then gave me a quick, disinterested thumbs up. "Cool, man. Thanks for all you did." I stood. Slowly. "I'll have it collect your badge and equipment by Friday," Gordon added. "And we'll make sure your severance package is fair." I just smiled, nodded once, extended my hand this time. He took it, grip like a limp fish. Then I walked out. Chase followed me down the hallway toward the break room, setting up his ring light, while humming some pop beat I didn't recognize. As I turned the corner, I heard him yell, "Let's go!" Followed by the start of some viral dance he probably practiced more than he ever practiced work. None of it surprised me. What surprised me was how calm I felt. My name is Marcus Wexler. I'm 58 years old, or at least that's what it says on my driver's license. For the past 29 years, I worked at a mid-tier tech firm in Chicago called Haven Bridge Solutions. My official title was Senior Systems Analyst. I made the Wi-Fi work, fixed your password resets, reset the server when it coughed. But that's just what they saw. That's what they needed to see. The truth? I was the architect of every line of defense this company ever had. Every firewall, every bypass, every encrypted node with a random name like Project_Helium 94. That was mine. They thought I was the quiet guy who fixed printer issues. That was my cover. My real work? Never on the books, not in payroll, not in org charts. Somewhere between legacy ops and digital fortification, I built my own kingdom. They gave me keys and never bothered to ask how many doors they unlocked. And now, they were handing my keys to a kid who live-streamed lunch. They thought I'd go quietly. They thought wrong. They wanted a culture reset. Fine. I would reset the whole system. The place I live in doesn't have character. That's intentional. Gray walls, steel shelving, a couch no one ever sat on but me. No framed photos, no evidence of time. It's not cold out of misery. It's cold because comfort dulls your instincts. And I couldn't afford dull. Not anymore. The apartment's quiet tonight. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional crack of pipes behind drywall. I sit at the kitchen table, the same one I've used for 14 years. There's a faint groove under the right chair leg. Habit. I slide the chair back, kneel down, and peel the corner of the floorboard up with a flathead screwdriver I keep in the drawer. It lifts smooth, no creak. Underneath, wrapped in black canvas and duct tape, is the lockbox. I drag it out, brush the dust away like I'm waking an old friend. The lock clicks open in 3 turns. Inside, 2 burner phones, 4 encrypted SSDs, 3 physical access keys labeled in a language only I remember. A flash drive taped to the underside of the lid. Blank, except for one word scrawled in red ink. ARK. I spent 29 years building this machine. I know which gears to stop, and which ones, when turned just right, send the whole thing tumbling down like loose scaffolding. The laptop I boot is air-gapped. No internet, no Bluetooth. The kind of machine they don't sell anymore without paperwork. I slide in the drive. The screen doesn't blink, doesn't ask for passwords. It knows me. It just breathes to life, like something patient and angry. I open the console and run the line I never told anyone about. /arc/init- full access - deep pull - trace equals masters corp dot. And the flood begins. Data spills in like a cracked pipe. Personnel files, backdoor access credentials, employee chat logs, internal memos flagged confidential. The thing about corporate systems is they never really delete anything. They just hide it behind permissions and plausible deniability. I built the walls. I also built the windows. As the code streams past, I lean back and close my eyes. A memory drifts in, uninvited. 1999. Early winter. The servers still humming like they were alive. Gordon and I were shoulder to shoulder in the old IT bunker, trying to fix a massive hardware crash 2 hours before a major rollout. I had cables in one hand, a whiskey glass in the other. He handed me a second pour, without asking. "You're the only one I trust with the guts of this place," he said, clinking my glass. "You ever disappear, we're screwed." I believed him. Back then, we were building something real. Late nights, bad coffee, handwritten code, and a sense of purpose. That was before the suits, before the logos and brand consultants and social media campaigns. Before Chase started showing up, taking selfies with departments he didn't understand. The console pings. Found. 27 flagged payments categorized as Creator Incentive Partnerships, all routed through a shell company in the Cayman Islands, all dispersed in the past 14 months, all signed off by Gordon, all deposited directly into an account linked to Chase Masters. I scroll through the entries, each one another nail. Some labeled as brand collab, others marked engagement bonus. None of it connected to actual work. It's a laundering scheme. Gordon's feeding money through the son he replaced me with, using him as a public asset and a private bank. I tap the keys, pulling bank statements, IP logs, security badge data. I follow a breadcrumb trail of fake influencers, dead LLCS, and digital kickbacks disguised as marketing spends. I know the pattern. I've seen it before, just never in my own house. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was stupidity. Because he should have known better. I didn't just build the systems. I built the contingencies, the redundancies. I buried fail-safes so deep, the audit teams never found them. ARC protocol was the last one, the one I created in case the thing we built turned against its builder. They replaced me with a clown. But they left the circus wired to explode. You don't destroy a man like Gordon by killing him. You do it by letting him watch himself burn, slowly, publicly, with no way to put out the fire. It started with one video. I didn't edit it, didn't add music or filters. I wanted it raw. Just the grainy footage from the internal HR archive. Camera 3, angle 4, time-stamped 2 months ago during the executive offsite in Tahoe. Chase Masters, shirtless, pacing the boardroom table like it was a runway. He lines a bump the size of a fingernail, snorts it in one clean drag, then yells something about brand synergy, while half the junior staff laugh uncomfortably off camera. One of them tries to leave. He blocks the door with his arm, still grinning. I uploaded it to a throwaway account. No bio, no follows. Just the file and one caption. Culture fit. It hit 6,000 views in the first hour. 40,000 by noon. Then someone tagged Havenbridge's corporate handle. Then came the stitches, the parodies, the side-by-sides of Chase's branded leadership quotes, next to his coke-fueled rant. They tried disabling comments. Too late. The internet doesn't forgive the rich when they act like gods and bleed like men. By sundown, the company's official page was flooded with, "Is this your culture?" comments and clown emojis. They issued a statement. Brief, dismissive, "We are aware of the video circulating." Kind of corporate non-apology. It only made it worse. The Streisand effect turned it into a wildfire. That night, I opened up the second file. Gordon's voice crackled through a bug I planted years ago in his office vent. A simple ceramic mic disguised inside a vintage air freshener he'd refused to throw away. He's laughing in the recording. Real, unfiltered Gordon. The version behind the press photos. Honestly, half the staff could be replaced by AI and stale coffee. You keep the ones that look good on the website, dump the rest before they hit pension. He goes on, bragging about funneling expenses through client dinners that were really strip club tabs. Jokes about moving money offshore. Then, let legal spin it. That's what they're for. I packaged the file, time-stamped it, compressed the audio so it couldn't be easily disputed, posted it to a whistleblower forum with a quiet trail leading to Reddit. From there, the algorithms did the rest. Then came the tax files. Expense reports marked compliance training, routed through fake shell vendors. Receipts altered, meals coded as security briefings. A $16,000 branding invoice from a media company that didn't exist, traced to Gordon's beach house mortgage account. I dropped them piece by piece. Never too much at once, just enough to keep the narrative bleeding. It wasn't revenge. It was demolition. Each leak was a wire pulled from the walls, each truth a crack in the foundation. I didn't want him to fall all at once. I wanted him to sway, panic, try to keep the walls upright with that toothy grin he'd worn for 30 years. And while he smiled, I remembered. I remembered the time he called me family. We were 3 bourbons deep after a merger rollout, sitting in his private office with jazz humming low in the background. He looked at me like I mattered. "You're the spine of this place, Marcus. We're nothing without you." I'd believed him, even when the raises didn't come, even when the credit went elsewhere, even when Chase waltzed in with a 6-figure title and an unearned smile. I kept showing up. I kept defending the walls I built. And in return, he handed me a pink slip and a thank you mug. I gave him my best years. He gave me silence and a boot. Now the stock was free-falling, 38% drop in 2 days. Investors panicked, Slack channels leaked, internal morale plummeted. Staff started tweeting anonymously with hashtags like hashtag Coke Culture and hashtag Masters Messes. And then, like a drowning man clawing for air, Gordon went live. From his office, tie loosened, eyes bloodshot, smile tight. "Let me be clear," he said to the camera. "These leaks are being taken out of context. We're investigating. We remain committed to transparency. And—" I muted him, watched his lips move. Then I whispered to the empty room, "Time for the final upload." The old data center still smelled like dust and dry heat, like forgotten code and burned coffee. It hadn't been used in years, not since the company moved to their sleek glass tower downtown, where everything smelled like lemon polish and branded ambition. But this place, this was where it started, before the consultants, before the influencers, before the rot. The keypad blinked red when I approached, then shifted to green the moment I placed my palm against the reader. I never removed my credentials from this system. I just buried them beneath layers of dead code no one had the patience to audit. I didn't have to break in. I built the locks. I built the keys. The server room hummed to life when I powered up the old rack. Fiber lines still intact. Backup generators still functional. They never shut it down properly. They thought power meant visibility. If no one was watching, it didn't matter what stayed connected. That was their first mistake. I plugged in the capsule, a small silver node, no bigger than a car key, marked only with a scratched X on its side. Inside it lived a script I wrote 7 years ago and never named until last week. I called it Final Breath, because that's what it was. Not a strike, not an attack, a release. One final exhale before the machine stopped pretending it wasn't choking on its own corruption. I typed the trigger code, pressed enter, and leaned back in the chair. It began slowly. At exactly 7:03 p.m., during the peak of Chase Masters' 25th birthday livestream, 400,000 viewers tuned in to watch him pour champagne on a cake shaped like his own face. The screen behind him glitched, then flickered, then froze. A pause. Confused chatter. Someone off camera laughed nervously. "Dude, did the screen die?" It hadn't died. It was reborn. In place of his birthday slideshow, a spreadsheet unfurled, line by line, account by account. Payouts, internal memos, shell company transfers. Every number backed by time-stamped evidence, verified by the very systems Gordon and I built together. No more shadows, no more redactions. Then the videos started. One showed Gordon berating a disabled employee after an HR mediation. Another captured Chase drunkenly bragging about laundering money through brand deals. A third showed internal meetings where top brass discussed laying off entire departments to boost quarterly optics while planning a 7-figure executive retreat. The live stream never stopped. Every attempt to shut it down failed. The audio feed looped through multiple servers across time zones. The visuals were mirrored in public torrent channels before anyone even tried pulling a plug. What I built wasn't a broadcast. It was a virus made of truth, and it was spreading. Chase screamed when he saw himself. Not the version he curated, but the one that couldn't be edited. Snot-nosed, high, laughing while someone cried just off-screen. He threw a bottle at the glitching LED wall. Gordon lunged for the camera. His voice, usually calm, presidential, cracked like cheap wood. "Cut it. Kill the stream. Shut it down now." But the feed didn't care. The feed had no loyalty. It just obeyed. I watched from the cold chair in that abandoned room, the light of the monitor dancing across the metal racks like fire. No satisfaction, no applause, just stillness. I didn't just kill their reputation. I gave them a mirror and forced the whole world to watch. The ping came minutes later, a secure message on my encrypted drive. No subject, no signature, just 3 words. You did it. It was from Liza, one of the first to get pushed out during the restructure 5 years ago. She had 26 patents to her name. They handed her a box of her things and a frozen smile. I'd kept her contact safe, wrapped in dead code like a gift I knew I'd open someday. I closed the server, pulled the capsule, and shut it all down. Outside, the city still buzzed, but something had shifted, like the current in a wire gone cold. The next morning, I visited a small bank I hadn't walked into in over a decade. No one there knew me, just the manager, who still remembered to nod without speaking. He handed me the safe deposit key. I stepped into the back room and opened box 612. Inside was a drive, no label, just weight. I plugged it into a private terminal. There were no files, only a list of names. 87 in total, all former employees, engineers, analysts, designers, each one marked off-boarded due to restructuring, each one like me, each one betrayed. One final act remained. The building didn't look like justice. It looked like paperwork, concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, a metal detector that hummed when I walked through. No one looked up. No one asked my name. That was the point. Justice wasn't in the marble columns or the armed guards. It was in the envelope I carried under my arm, plain white, thick with truth. I walked past a receptionist reading something on her phone, past 2 interns arguing about a broken printer, down the long corridor to the document intake window, where the glass was fogged with the breath of decades. A woman behind it slid open the panel and said, "Drop or pick up." "Drop," I replied. She reached for the envelope. I placed it gently on the counter. Top left corner read, "Pattern of abuse, Masters Corp., 1994 to 2023. Inside was everything. The drive with the offshore accounts, the laundering schemes, the manipulated tax documents, the HR complaints buried in internal folders labeled Legacy Admin. It had testimony from former employees, some real names, some redacted, along with metadata, routing codes, even Chase's influencer contracts, backdated to match fraudulent invoices. I didn't leave anything out. I wanted the record to be complete. The woman didn't ask questions. She stamped the envelope, tossed it into a bin with a dozen others and said, "You'll be notified if follow-up is required." "It won't be," I replied, and walked out. 3 weeks passed. Gordon was scheduled to speak at a panel downtown, something about leading through disruption. The irony wrote itself. The crowd outside wasn't there for the speech. They were there for the spectacle. I stood across the street, coffee in hand, collar turned up just enough to keep the wind off my neck. No one noticed me, just how I liked it. At 9:04 a.m., the black SUV pulled to the curb. Gordon stepped out, tailored suit, polished shoes, fake tan cracking at the edge of his jawline. Chase followed, holding his phone like a mirror he couldn't look away from. A few flashes popped from the press line. They smiled, posed, even waved. They didn't see the agents until it was too late. 2 unmarked sedans. 1 word, security. The crowd rippled. Chase said something I couldn't hear, but it sounded like panic. Gordon's hands went behind his back, not gently. The cuffs clicked. He tried to speak, but the mic caught nothing. His head was down, his eyes locked on the concrete like if he stared hard enough, he could disappear into it. Chase was crying. I watched from the edge of the sidewalk, anonymous, calm, as the man who told me I didn't fit the culture anymore got loaded into the back of a car with blacked-out windows and no door handles on the inside. He always said I didn't belong. Now, he didn't either. That night, I logged in one last time, not to gloat, not to spy, just to finish the ritual. I accessed the system from the same terminal I used on my first day. Remote, secure, quiet. I pulled up my shadow credentials, the ones buried beneath layers of false identities and air-gapped logic loops. I watched the cursor blink. Then I deleted them. Every last trace, every backdoor, every proxy key and access port I had ever touched. No more ghosts in their system, just ashes. The company folded within days. Lawsuits piled like snowdrifts. Investors pulled out. Partners issued public apologies. The master's name, once printed on lanyards and keynote stages, became poison. Bank accounts frozen, assets seized, brand rights auctioned off for pennies. Chase tried to pivot to a rebrand, called himself a redemption influencer. No one cared. The news didn't mention me. No articles, no whistleblower spotlight, just a footnote in a storm they couldn't explain. That's how you know it worked. They wanted a culture they could control. I gave them one they couldn't survive.